Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Internet Writing Buddies podcast. Speaking today is the Graceful Renegade, aka Grace. Hi, everyone. We have Ben with us as always,
Hi,
Mr. Dork in the Road.
I'm Ben, Mr.
Yeah,
Dork in the Road
yeah,
on YouTube and Instagram, and also, did you know TikTok? Yeah,
how
yeah.
many thousands of people do you have that follow you, Ben?
On YouTube, 100,000,
Uh-huh.
101,000 at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a white check mark. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. How
And
many Emmy awards do you have?
not as many as some people who enjoy pointing it out every time. I can't believe it's not just in the background. You need a t-shirt that says "I won an Emmy."
I just need to have it on the shelf right here.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here, everybody. Yes, Ben, you can follow. He is a Dork in the Road on I think Instagram and TikTok, and then you're just Dork in the Road on YouTube,
I'm
correct?
actually Dork in the Road on TikTok too. I'm only a
Uh,
dork on Instagram.
and that is because of the lovely person who still has that handle. Very sad for you. Who was the toy maker? That was what it
No,
was, right?
toy unboxer.
Toy unboxer.
Yeah.
It's worse. It's so much worse.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right. So today, on a more serious note, one of the topics that I wanted to talk about with Ben, because we both ride quite a bit and we ride all year long, is actually discussing what gear we wear and why, and also what we think the best type of protective gear is, because we both do a lot of dual sport and adventure riding, and that can get a little gnarly. Also, the weather in Oregon, particularly in winter, can get gnarly. So, Ben, how do we feel about talking about gear today? Good?
It's great and worth pointing out that comparatively speaking, the weather here is significantly less gnarly than some places where, we don't have 6 feet so we're lucky because we can ride year round. I can ride year round as long as I don't mind getting cold and wet. I live in the valley where we get snow maybe 2 days a year. Where Grace is, there's more snow more frequently. And I'm near the Coast Range, which rarely has snow, so I can even ride in the mountains and the forest all year. So apologies, someone will point it out if we don't, to our friends in Minnesota and Canada and places where
Yes.
you have feet of snow and you have to winterize your bike because unless you're turning it into a snow bike, you can't get out of the garage. But for those of us lucky enough to live in a place where riding in the colder months is possible, there are some things that make it a lot more pleasant, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely. And yes, the weather in Bend can be a little bit more wintry over here. We definitely do get snow. We obviously have Mount Bachelor, where I tend to ski for some of the winter, but that is the nice thing about living in Oregon, is we have almost every type of terrain you can imagine. So if we did have a big snow this winter, I would just be driving over the mountain pass to hang out with Ben and go ride in the rainforest.
I always
But
say
yes,
2 hours from everything here. You want to go to the
yeah,
beach? 2 hours. You want to go to the snow? 2 hours. You want to go to the desert? 2 hours. Also, it's terrible here. Don't move here.
it's terrible. We hate it so
Yeah, do
much,
not move here,
obviously.
please.
Yeah,
We have
no,
Oregon is full.
it's full.
Yeah,
Max capacity.
yeah, that's it.
All right, so let's kick this off by starting to discuss, I think, the one brand you and I both wear consistently that is the same, which is Alpine Stars. Now, one of the reasons why I love Alpine Stars is because I actually started riding adventure in them. Now, granted, women's gear, not as great as men's gear quite yet. They're still kind of getting into their groove. However, the thing that's so great about Alpine Stars is that you can buy one suit, one kit, and wear it all year round, which is what I did last year when I lived off my bike. I only went through 2 kits in 14 months, and those kits were waterproof. They had thermal liners. They had vents for when it was really warm. I went from riding in temperatures of 110 to 115 degrees Celsius to about 30 to 35 Celsius, 110 to
I'm sorry, how
115
hot
degrees
was so the
Fahrenheit.
surface of Venus, Mercury?
My bad, everybody.
My
This
blood was literally boiling.
this non-alcoholic beer is going right to my head. Sorry, 110 to 115 degrees Fahrenheit and 30 to 35 degrees Fahrenheit. It did get chilly and it did get hot, but I was more than taken care of. And that is one of the reasons why I love these suits. Ben, what input do you have as far as weather goes with these?
This is a great point counterpoint that you set up and didn't realize that you did, because if you're living off your bike, or you're spending a ton of time on your bike, or you're riding somewhere, so multiple days where you're going to go through multiple climates, which you can see like on a BDR trip, like, right, if you like ride Nevada, you start in the desert and you end up way up in the mountains, and they're very different climates. And even Oregon, first 2 days is in the desert, and by the end you're up around Mount Hood. On a trip like that, a very versatile multi-purpose suit like Alpine Stars. I got some gear from Revit that is like that. The stuff with zip-in liners, with quilted and waterproof liners is fantastic. But I hate that shit.
I know you do.
Because I don't do those types of trips that often, and I first I don't hate it. That was just me being dramatic. It's just not my favorite type of gear, because what it does everything, but it doesn't do anything 1,000% well. And I prefer purpose-built gear for what I'm doing. Now, I'm lucky in that I have a lot of suits of gear and I can do that. But when you're just like if I go out and ride from home, I know what the weather's going to be like all day. And I like layers rather than zip-in stuff, just because it's so much easier when it warms up to pull your jacket off, pull off your mid layer, throw your jacket back on, versus like going in and unsnapping and unzipping everything. And particularly in cold weather, I think layers are awesome because of that, and because the more layers you get, the more insulating air pockets you have, which is why I love base layers, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, at some point. But in cold weather, I like a waterproof shell by itself, and then a mid layer underneath and a base layer. I don't like having to deal with waterproof liners and stuff, but I do like having a zip in and out liner on a day when I'm going to go riding and it might rain, and so then I have it if I need it, but I'm not wearing gear that doesn't breathe or is slightly less comfortable. I'm part of it is I'm just rotund, girthy, you might say. And so when I get multiple layers in a jacket, I can't move my arms. And
Yeah.
it's just not comfortable for me. So for a
Yeah.
smaller person, maybe it's less of a concern, but I definitely am way less comfortable when I'm super all the layers in the same jacket.
Yeah. I totally understand that. Actually, one of the tricks that I started doing when I was in Asia, because you would go through really, really warm and then it would cool off and then you'd have like a monsoon. So it would just be like this all the time. But in a lot of those more chaotic weather environments, what I started doing was just bringing the like rain suit you put over everything, because sometimes you're out and you're in the middle of a ride and you don't have time to take layers off. It's just quickly throw one on and hope you stay dry enough. And so I do recommend, if you're ever doing a big type of trip like that, to bring a shell, especially if there's rain in the forecast. Now, granted, if you're in, like we were just saying, if you're doing Nevada BDR where it doesn't rain very often, probably don't need to bring one of those. But if you are going to be in a climate where very suddenly it goes from being very, very warm to monsooning, highly recommend just having that outer shell to throw on. It does get hot as hell in there and you will smell horrible later. However, it's worth it. I promise you.
Yeah, it's funny. Hearing you say when you know it definitely won't rain just makes me laugh, because that is definitely the time it will rain.
Usually, yes.
But if it's
Yeah.
warm, at least it's like, okay, I'm wet, but I'm not cold.
I mean, if it's like a bluebird sky and you can see for miles, I think you're probably all right. Just check your weather apps, everybody. Be smart, do your homework, pack accordingly. But yes, Ben, I'm also with you on that. I don't really like riding in a lot of the layers. I think having the option, if you are only going to have one suit, kind of like I have, is great.
Yeah.
But now that I have been stationary, I have all sorts of different kits depending on what the weather is. And that is a great way to talk about, what do you usually like to ride in when you're strictly doing dirt? So not a lot of road riding, just like kind of getting right in there. Are you putting on a lot of light layers? Are you putting on a lot of protective gear? What are you wearing for a lot of these days out?
When the weather is not terrible.
Yes.
Well, when you're all the way off the road or mostly off the road, it becomes a lot more about impact protection and a lot less about abrasion resistance. Problem
Yeah.
with adventure riding is we have to find gear that does both. But when I'm riding dirt, is about the only time that I will wear just hard armor, like a plastic armor. I actually have a Fox Racing setup that I bought for my Grisbait trip that's super comfortable. And before that, I had just a very protective roost guard. It's hard to find ones that fit when you're a little larger. They're mostly designed for, the people that ride motocross, and people my size generally don't because suspensions would explode. But so that kind of hard armor, obviously motocross boots in the Tech Sevens is what I wear. But I used to run the O'Neills. You don't have to buy $700 boots, but for that kind of, particularly the kind of technical stuff, either up in Central Oregon where it's all rocky, sandy, or down here it's all ruts and roots and just the kind of thing that can grab an ankle and twist it before you know, or smash it. That's important. Knee pads. I usually wear MX pants and jersey on a hot day, or I'll throw a jacket on a rainier, crappier day. But there are times it also depends on what we're doing, right? Like on a full-on trail riding all day thing, I will throw on all that gear. But like when we went and I knew we were just going to be putting around on the green trails this last time, I just wore my riding gear because one, it was raining and it was the driest gear I had. But two, I knew I'd be okay with just the street pads. What about you?
Yeah. I mean, normally I think depending on what type of gear you like to wear, I will say from a female perspective, I think Fox makes the best women's MX pants. Just because I think they design them for women's bodies in a way that no other brand has quite gotten to yet.
Are you suggesting women's bodies are different?
I'm suggesting that women's bodies are very different.
What? The same
Yes,
old
I know.
crap doesn't just work?
I wish, but yes. So if you're a female that actually has more of a female type figure, I highly recommend giving those pants a check. Otherwise though, I'm usually in Alpine Stars Tech 7 boots. Always, I'm super protective of my feet, ankles, and shins because I am bony and I don't want to break an ankle. Those are also, I think, obviously everyone's opinion is different, but I think they're the best boots on the market for doing off-road, dual sport, and ADV riding because you're always going to be protected no matter what. Then yeah, kind of the standard knee pads, hip pads. I have a fully armored shirt I wear from Alpine Stars. That's everything. It's shoulders, elbows, chest, and back. Yeah, and that's kind of what I go with. I'll wear a jersey if I feel like it, but most of the time, if it's mild out, I'll just put that armored shirt on and ride in that.
Yeah. I mean, a jersey is mostly like dust protection.
Yeah.
That point.
Which we do kind of need, at least on this side of the mountains.
Yeah.
It is so dusty here during the summer. It's outrageous. But yeah, but in general, I think MX, dual sport gear, lighter stuff, making sure you're protected. One of the things that I have actually found with adventure gear that is interesting is there are a lot of brands now that are selling jackets without spine protectors and things like that.
So
and would love your input on that because it's one of the most frustrating things I think about buying this type of suit. I know Revit really hasn't done that either. Alpine Stars doesn't do it either. So, from your opinion, Ben, do you think you need a spine protector? And why do you think brands are opting out of actually including these with the jacket?
Let me answer your do you need a spine protector question with another question. Do you need a spine?
My thoughts exactly.
So they do it to cut costs and drive, I assume, when it's already a $500 jacket, it drives me nuts. And then particularly just because I don't know if enough people know, especially when it's like an entry-level jacket, like you go to Cycle Gear and they all have these foam pads. And like it kind of feels like there's something in there, but it really is not good. The nice thing is getting one is not like you can pay $20 for a hard armor back protector that'll go into most jackets. I had one that I moved from jacket to jacket to jacket forever. You don't have to go to D3O. The advantage of D3O is it's more comfortable and you don't really notice it's there.
Right.
But it's frustrating that sort of essential piece is not there, and it just feels like when video game developers cut content so they can sell it as DLC, like that kind of thing. Like, is it a profiteering thing or is it a lowering cost thing? Which is why it's so remarkable. Opportunity to plug one of my favorite brands, that the Rocky Mountain stuff comes with D3O armor in their Voyager gear, and the Explorer. Sorry, that's backwards. The Explorer is the higher end, and the Voyager gear also has. It's not D3O, but it's a molecular soft armor. And I don't think it's molecular. It's a soft armor back pad, but it has one. It's not a foam pad. And they do that so it just makes the value even more high because like it's $450 for jacket and pants of
Yeah.
the Voyager stuff. And you don't have to budget the extra $80 for a D30 back protector that you do with the fancier. Because like if you're buying Revit gear, I'm gonna guess you want to get their pad. I'm not sure that brands, how do I say this? Some of them probably make it so the pockets on their jackets only fit their armor.
I
Um,
think most of them do that now.
so you can't go
Yeah.
out and buy the $20, which that's garbage.
Yeah.
You should
Yeah.
not.
I think that's one of the main issues that I have with some of these bigger brands nowadays is just that, because there are a lot of people that get into the sport and buy their first suit or just buy one and kind of don't think about it. And I think one of the most important things to have is a spine protector. Chest protector, I know some people love them, some people don't think they're necessary. I will love your input on that as well, but definitely keep in mind if you're buying a suit, whether or not the spine protector is in there, because a lot of the time it won't be, and you're definitely going to want one if you're doing any kind of adventure or dual sport riding. But
Yeah,
yeah, Ben, chest protectors, what do you think?
well, hold on. Let me just jump in
Oh,
on
sorry.
spine
Yes.
protector. Spine protector is kind of like a helmet. It's not the thing
Yeah.
that's going to get used most. Like obviously, your elbow and knee pads are the things that are going to get used most often. But it's
Yeah.
the thing you want to have when that catastrophe occurs because the damage potential is so high. Spine equals good.
Yep.
That's a little biology, a little human anatomy for you. So
Yep.
write that down. Put it on a t-shirt. Spine equals good.
We should make t-shirts.
Yeah.
Just another thought.
Chest armor was your question.
Hmm.
Um, I think you could get away without it, but it's nice. It's not essential, but it sure is nice when you can get it.
Yeah, I agree. I think I like to wear it any type of dirt or dual sport riding I'm doing, just because we tend to get into trees. We tend to get into some tighter stuff that can get a little weird, and also rocks. And I don't know, this just feels like it would hurt really bad. And I like my collarbones where they are. So yeah, chest protector. But when I
Uneven
do 80,
terrain, it's good, right? Like
yeah,
sort of like the armor on your bike, where the
yeah,
concern is not flat ground because you're probably not going to land on it, but
yeah,
if you land on something pointy,
yes.
that goes into
And
your so.
if I'm doing ADV riding though, I normally don't have one on.
Mhm.
I just normally chest is fine and I have my spine protector in. So yeah, everybody's different. But yeah,
We all have
yeah,
spines.
we all have spines.
Yeah,
Protect your spine, everybody. It's just like your skull. If you break that thing, you're in major trouble.
it's actually connected
But
to it. I learned that from Mortal Kombat.
is that from the guy that rips the spine out?
He rips it out, right? And
Yeah,
he rips the head out, the spine's right there.
yeah.
So apparently they're connected.
Does the head come with the spine when he rips
Yeah,
it out?
yeah. It's just so like
See, they're
you learn a
connected,
lot from video
everybody.
games, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah. You can learn a lot. A lot.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But yeah. Oh, okay. So this is a debate I actually got in with my friend Michaela yesterday. Tinted goggles or not tinted goggles?
I don't like them because I'm in
Yeah.
and out of the trees too much. So
Yeah.
that's what the visor on my helmet's for. If I get out into the sun and it's too bright, I can lower it down. But I hate, like it's the same with my sunglasses. Like the second I get off road, they come off, even if I'm going to be getting out into bright stuff here and there, because I don't want to miss a rock or a rut or a root or something in a shadow. And that happens all the time, especially when you're riding kind of fast in what you think is a pretty good road.
Yeah.
Suddenly you're bottoming out in a pothole that you didn't see. So
Yep.
I
Yeah.
don't like them, and I'm really like sensitive to bright light, like photophobic, I believe is the word. I'm not afraid of it. It just my eyes are sensitive because I've been wearing contacts and I have blue eyes. And I still won't wear my shades when I'm riding off road most of the time.
Yeah. I actually used to be very into tinted visor, all that stuff. And now I don't. I usually just ride clear, because especially in and out of the trees, you just can't see anything sometimes if you have too much tint. And I've had a couple of really close calls with my tinted goggles on. And after that, I was just kind of over it. It's just clear goggles all the way. I'd rather be a little sunblind occasionally and use the visor that's on the helmet versus not. So, yeah.
Somebody is going to chime in with, but blue helps you see in certain situations, and orange lets you, and that's probably true. I have
Yeah.
only used like So I haven't like I don't ride in the snow, so I don't, those
Right.
in the desert. Like if I'm in the desert where there's no shade, I'm gonna wear my shades or I'm gonna wear something tinted. But that's not what we do a lot, at least where I
No.
live.
I mean, this is usually the type of riding I'm referring to. This is anytime you're in and out of dense trees, anytime you're kind of up in the mountains, in the forest, whatever else, or even out here in the desert. Like we have a lot of weird light patterns, and especially with the weather being a little crazy this time of year, it can go from being full sun to overcast immediately. And sometimes it's just worth it not to have anything. But
Man, you
uh
prepared so much for this episode, so much more than I did for the one that was my topic. Well done. You just
Well,
have
we're going to keep going
exhausted.
because we're going to talk about different types of weather quickly.
Damn. Okay, I'm here for it. That's what the kids
Yeah.
do.
See, this is what happens when you have a Virgo that comes into an episode and she's excited about it. I definitely
Yeah.
thought about all the things I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
All right. So let's say you're going out to ride and it's pouring down rain. What gear are you putting on? Or what suit are you putting on? And why? Talk us through it.
Right now,
Yeah.
it's my Rocky Mountain Explorer gear. Like, yeah, I'm an affiliate, but it's not why I'm telling you this. Waterproof shell. It's the most generous fit gear that I have, and it's the easiest to layer under because it's just that shell. So if it's cold, I'm throwing on a base layer. If it isn't, um, I'm just throwing on that jacket and pants. I was wearing them on our muddy trail riding day. Grace was complaining about various parts of her being frozen and wet. I was perfectly comfortable all day to the point where I had to be like, oh wait, I probably shouldn't be the one that's determining when we're done riding because I'm very comfortable. And before that, I had like the climb. I had the Carlsbad suit, and I just outgrew it. And by outgrew it, I mean gained too much weight. But uh, but I gave it away, so somebody in the Pacific or in the Mid Valley Dual Sport Riders got a deal.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
but that's on a
Yeah.
wet day. That's what I'm wearing, and waterproof gloves. I have an MSR set that I like. I have some racer gloves I really like. I just got some Revit stuff, and that Revit the off-track gear that I had that I used that I had on in that hailstorm. Perfect example of the weather changing on you, by the way. And thank God I
Yes.
already had the liner in that day because I knew it. I purposefully went out in the rain. That was great too. That was great too. Very waterproof. Like
Yeah.
so, the only gear that's ever failed me in terms of waterproofing is some of the Sedici stuff and the
Yeah.
built stuff, which has water has just come through for some reason, which is weird because I thought it literally just had a plastic liner in there, but apparently not.
Yeah. Uh, I think the stuff that or at least what I'm normally doing, especially this time of year, if it's raining, is Gore-Tex jacket because that thing it's wonderful. I've ridden in downpour in that jacket and I have not gotten wet at all.
Which one is that?
Highly recommend. But I will also say one of the things I want to note for everybody is gear is only waterproof to a certain degree. If you are in a torrential downpour monsoon, which I have been in full waterproof gear, it will last for a while and then it doesn't. So just keep in mind that sometimes it's just all a matter of time. So riding in the rain can be fun. Like Ben, we were out for a couple hours and did fine. But I think if you're out for 8 to 9 hours and it is just raining the whole time, don't expect to stay completely dry. Things are going to slip through the cracks. And particularly if you aren't completely zipped in certain places, it could be trouble. So just be mindful of that. But I
Water
had
is
that happen.
tenacious. It
Yeah,
always finds a way. And
it does.
and and in places that you didn't think about, like the collar, like if you don't cinch down the collar,
Here. Yeah.
you know, you end up with a one line all the way down the front of your body of cold water, stuff like that. It'll find its
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. When I was in Bali, we had like 2 straight days of riding through monsoons. And one of the days I got a huge pool just kind of in the front and I moved wrong. And one of my vents happened to just be open this much. And I got water all down my left leg, which granted it's warm there, so it didn't matter. But that's just an example of, sometimes you can have the best gear on, but Mother Nature is still going to kick your ass. It just happens to the best of us. But
Yeah,
all
and your
right.
hands always end up getting wet. And for
Yes.
me, it's usually from taking my hands out to mess with my phone, and putting them back in, whatever.
I
But
know people think I'm crazy, but I usually always have 3 pairs of gloves on me. And that's because I also am a sweater. So if it's really hot out, I'm going to sweat through a pair.
I always thought you had more
Uh,
of a pullover.
If it's like really kind of cold and rainy, then I'm definitely going to go through a pair of gloves. So I usually, and you usually always have a friend that doesn't bring an extra pair and might want an extra pair. So I usually always bring three. I know that's a little over dramatic, but that's just how I am. But this is also a great plug for a brand that I love called Hippo Hands, which is wonderful to use for adventure and dual sport riding because, like Ben was saying, it's hard to keep your hands completely dry in those environments, even when you do have waterproof gloves. But having Hippo Hands on the bike, which Ben and I both ride dirt with Hippo Hands on, they keep your hands pretty dry. It's pretty awesome. And as long as you are just able to kind of do the quick install on the bike, they go really, really well around flag protectors on the handlebars. So keep those in mind. Just a plug. They're a great product. I have them on all my motorcycles. I don't ride without them during the winter.
Damn, we are in sync. I did not know I was setting up that topic so well. Crushed
That's
it.
right.
You may not know what hippo hands are. If you don't, they are insulated, waterproof handguard covers that look like the hands of a hippo. What I love
Hippo.
about hippo hands is they're super on brand. So the outside liner is called hippo skin, and then the insulation is called hippo fat. But they're very sturdy. They work really well. They're flexible. Like Grace said, we ran them. I had what's funny is we were out filming for Hippo Hands, and she did not have a pair on her bike, which was
Did not.
really funny when I went back through the footage and tried to use it in my review, which was the point of it. But I had them. I had the back countries on my
Well, because this
$300.
is the best way to explain why Hippo Hands are great. We were riding, it's about 40 to 45 degrees and raining almost the whole time we were out. And I was a popsicle after a while because I didn't have Hippo Hands on my bike. Whereas, and honestly, the only part of me that was getting soaked and cold were my hands. Ben had Hippo Hands on the whole time and was doing, he did great. He didn't want to stop riding. It was purely just me being frozen. So, perfect example of why having Hippo Hands can be so great is on those colder days, you can stay out riding longer because you stay warmer.
And I don't have heated grips on that bike. I was just
No.
my gloves stayed dry, my hands stayed dry. They were out of the
Yeah.
wind. It was
Yeah.
nice. I like those a lot. And the guys are cool. That's the thing. It's like there's people that I seek out at every event that I see them at to hang out with, and the Hippo Hands
Yeah.
guys in particular, I'm always like they shared their keg with me the first year I was at Touratech, and I've been in love with them ever since. And Brian let me ride his TW200.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're Brian and Drew are amazing dudes. We love them here. Yeah. Okay. Two other aspects of weather I want to talk about. Extreme cold and extreme heat. Let's start with extreme heat because we'll end with more of the wintry idea because it's winter here. But
Current.
extreme heat, one of the biggest complaints I hear about, particularly when it comes to brands like Climb. Like I think Climb has an incredible product and they do have a good vent system, but their suits are so heavy and dense. Riding, I think, in any weather that's above 90 degrees Fahrenheit is going to give you a heat stroke in that thing. So when you're out riding, Ben, and it's 100 degrees, what do you wear? Why? Talk through which brands you use and what you think the best kind of setup is.
I hate riding over 90 degrees. But I will. That's Fahrenheit, by the way, unlike
Yes, not
Grace's.
Celsius.
Apparently in Asia it is 130 degrees Celsius. Anyway, I don't, so I will do it. Obviously you have to because it gets hot in the summer. So perfect example of what you're talking about is our Oregon BDR trip because
Yeah.
and it's gonna come up. Mistakes were made. Ooh, cat. We started late in the day on that first day, and Trav ended up getting heat stroke. Like it was a bad scene.
Yeah.
I would do things differently if I went back, or I wouldn't do that section again. But planning for that trip, knowing that it was going to be over 100 the first 2 days, excuse me, and that like it's not like we could move the dates. We'd been planning it for a year, and then 90 the other days. Extreme heat is about the only time I will compromise on something like slide protection in favor of ventilation because heat stroke is far more likely to be a problem. And so on that trip, I was running my Climb armored shirt, which has like moisture wicking, breathing, it breathes really well fabric. So, I would sweat and it would actually help with the evaporative cooling. And then I have the Climb, the tactical I think it's called the Tactical Pro. It's a jersey that's mesh, but it has abrasion resistant material in the slide zones, which like it's like 500 denier, which is so much better than a regular jersey if you go down on the street. But I was erring on the side of ventilation on that trip, and then I was wearing my Climb Mojave pants, which are vented, but also sorry, they're mesh, mostly mesh, but they have armor and the
Yeah.
abrasion resistance in the knees and the seat and all that. So, and that was really helpful. I got a lot of flack because my Tactical Pro jersey was black, but that's just the one that they had in when I ordered it. I
Yeah.
understand that it makes a difference, but a gray one was not going to keep me that much cooler. The
No.
better point was that I had all the ventilation, right? Like, because if I had thrown on a lighter colored jacket, I would have been a lot less comfortable than I was in my mesh
Yeah.
jersey, even though it happened to be black. And the nice thing
Right.
was my armored shirt was gray. So
Yeah.
when it got super hot, I took it off and just wore the armored shirt.
Yeah.
So on a super hot day, that's what I'll wear. But I like to switch to this is back to me talking about how I like a dedicated shell. And then
Yeah.
as soon as it approaches 75, 80 degrees, I like to just have a separate set of mesh gear.
Yeah.
I understand that not everyone can afford to do that, but it's something you work towards eventually. And so all summer last year, I wore my Climb Maracach, which breathes incredibly well. It's very stretchy and is 1,000 denier supposedly. And then this year, I just got a Revit mesh suit that I really like. I used to have a
Yeah.
built mesh jacket that I wore all the time that was really good. I had an AGV one, so it just makes such a difference because I
Yeah.
really struggle to convince myself to put on regular armor when it's over 90 degrees, and I just find myself hopping in the car. So it's nice to
Yes.
have an alternative.
Yeah. I think the big word I want to highlight here is mesh. Mesh is such the way to go when it's this hot. When I was in Thailand, it was 115 to 120 degrees Fahrenheit every day. And I lived in the mesh jacket I had, which I would actually occasionally take off because there does come a certain point. Now, granted, I was doing more touring than off-road riding, but this is the point I want to make, which is there's some times where you have to weigh the lesser of two evils, and heat stroke is not something that you want to fuck around with at all. And so if you are in a situation, even like Trav was, where you are out in the middle of nowhere and you're having to negotiate with yourself about armor or overheating, or armor and overheating, or less armor, a little more at risk, but keeping your body temp at a reasonable temperature, definitely keep yourself more conscientious and conscious and go with less armor. Take a layer off if you have to, because even if you are fully armored, if your brain is not functioning correctly because you're overheating, you're going to make a stupid mistake and get hurt.
Mhm.
What's the worst you have to do? You have to slow down a little bit, take your time, find some shade, and get hydrated. But I see a lot of people make that mistake where they think it's just more important to stay armored. And I can assure you it's not. I had to ride a Pan America for about 50 miles in a bikini top because I got way overheated to the point where I was passing out on the motorcycle. So don't do that to yourself. Make sure you keep your body temp at a reasonable temperature. And also, if it's over 95 degrees, unless you're out in a BDR situation, you don't have to go out and ride and destroy yourself. It's just not necessary. But yeah, I
That
think the lighter the better. Mesh is the way to go. And that's pretty much my 50 cents on that.
well, your bikini top thing reminded me of um Trav and I, one of Trav and I's favorite sayings is a sock gat, that's some of the gear at this time.
Yeah.
I'm sock gat right now. I'm some of the gear.
Yeah.
Some of the gear. We also have fat gat, which is just like I'm so fat I wear what fits me. That's it.
Hey, that works too.
Yeah.
That works too. But yeah, always stay hydrated, everybody. Stay light. I do always recommend finding a very well ventilated suit. If you are going to do a suit type of thing.
Good advice.
There are lots of brands that do a good job with that and lots of brands that do a bad job with that. And I won't name names, but yeah. Anyway, moving on. Let's go to winter. Ben, what is the coldest temperature you ride at?
On purpose? I
Yes.
try, if it's under 40, I really struggle to get myself to go out, but I
Yeah.
have ridden at at just above freezing. Riding around or below freezing is bad because it gets very slippery.
Yeah.
And even on this last ride, I was in some shady spots and realized even on this gravel road I was on, it was ice. It was a sheet of
Yeah.
ice because there was just a thin layer of water that had frozen. And so below
Yeah.
freezing, I don't care how hardcore you are, is dumb. But I try. With my setup, I'm pretty comfortable in 40 degrees, particularly if I'm on a bike with heated grips. But I try not to purposefully go out to ride below that. What about you?
Same. If it's freezing or below, I would say absolutely I'm tapping out. I know there are a lot of people that do like to continue touring year round and do a heated gear setup and get the obviously the plugins for those, which I know there are a lot of different amazing setups that you can actually run off of your motorcycle while you're riding so you stay warm the whole time. Heated grips are a great thing that can help. But as far as the gear goes, unless you're running heated gear and you're kind of sticking to roadways that are taken care of, I think you're just risking a lot getting out below freezing off road because everything gets icy and slick. And that's when you can do some serious damage. But as for myself, I don't really ride with heated gear because, again, I'm a sweater. And the worst thing you can
I
do
would have
when
thought
you're
cardigan at best.
um the worst thing you can do when you're out in the cold is get super, super sweaty and then obviously stop riding because your body temp drops. You get cold really fast. So I'm usually starting out my rides kind of cold because I try to avoid sweating, but I will bring layers if I feel like I can't warm up. I'm also the first person to take layers off. So I usually have like a base merino wool layer I keep on. Oftentimes over that, I'll do one of those quick wick shirts. And that's usually all I need. Because most of my jackets, especially the Gore-Tex one I ride in the most from Alpine Stars, they have that really nice thermal layer in there. If it's gonna like drop real cold and I'm just not sure, I will also bring my Patagonia down zipper jacket just because it's such an easy layer to throw on if all of a sudden the temp drops and I'm not home in time.
And you
So
can
I
pack it
just,
into your bag because they
yes,
compress down
it's
so far.
small, it compresses down, very, very easy to use. I will always wear a pair of like long johns on my legs that are also merino wool, but I don't really worry about my legs. As long as my hands and my feet and my head are warm, I'm usually fine. And that's all I really care about. So
40 degrees Celsius is 4.4 degrees. Nope, that's backwards. 40 degrees Fahrenheit is 4.4 degrees Celsius, by the way. Somebody
yes.
will comment. I got
Yeah.
you, our Canadian and European. Basically,
Is that
the
what you're
rest of the
looking up on
world
the
that's not
computer?
stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 4.4 repeating, of course,
Yes.
degrees.
Yeah. Got
Yeah.
to get those decimals in there. God forbid.
And I will say, cold weather riding, base layers are a game changer. So if you're not
Yeah.
wearing a wool base layer, like that is all I wear under my riding pants. I don't even bother with a mid layer, and down to 40 degrees or 4 degrees Celsius, I'm plenty comfortable. And I've gone lower, ridden in the snow, done snow angels, all that stuff with just the base layer on my legs. And I wear one
Yeah.
on top and then generally it's usually a fleece mid layer because I have so many of them, but I also like puffies when it's really cold.
Yeah.
And then my shell over the top, and
Yeah.
it's pretty comfortable.
I think yeah, just your legs are kind of like the last thing you need to be worried about. Your chest, keeping your chest warm, your head warm, and your hands warm are really the way to go. Because if those stay warm, everything else will kind of stay warm. And that's at least how I look at it, which is why one layer on underneath pants, and that's all I go for. So
Talk to me
yeah,
about visors, uh, because I whenever I go out in the winter and we have it's usually cold rain on top of cold weather. So
yeah,
my visor is just continually getting hammered with cold rain. And even with the pin lock, the inside of the pin lock will fog up where I'm breathing.
yeah,
Uh, so that happens. Now it's much better than with no pin lock. But I often just have to leave the visor cracked so that there's some ventilation, and it's just like you have to choose between not being able to see and cold air in your eyeballs. So, what do you do? What do you do to keep your visor clear?
I don't think there's a right answer for that. because I have the same issue. Now, granted, I will say if I'm riding in my Schuberth helmet, one of the things that is great about the Schuberth is they actually have a little, I call it the defrost, but they have a vent that comes up under the helmet that will circulate air through here. So it does actually keep your visor pretty defrosted and cleared up. However, there are definitely days when it's gnarly, and a lot of those days I end up just riding with my visor up, because if you can't see, you can't ride. But I think the big thing is, if you are going to be, hi buddy, if you are going to be in an environment where you're going to be doing a lot of riding like that, you just need to shop and find helmets that have good vent systems like the Schubert does. Because otherwise, same thing with like goggles can be a pain too. Like, how many times did we have to wipe out our goggles when we were out riding a couple of weeks ago because they kept getting fogged up? It's just a hazard of the environment. But it's just knowing that ahead of time and preparing ahead of time to deal with the fogging up and everything else. That's the best you can do.
One thing that has worked is some companies like why is it escaping me right now? The Scorpion. God, couldn't even think of it. Some of their gear is both snowmobile gear and motorcycle gear. So like the AT950, and I assume the AT960 is both a motorcycling helmet and a snowmobile helmet, which means an actual double pane visor. I have one actually for my AT950, and you can even buy a heated visor that you plug in. So if
No
you're
way, they make heated visors?
yeah, because they're for snowmobiling. So if you're riding in the winter a lot, that is
Cool.
the ultimate, I would say, solution. You got to find a way to plug it
Yeah.
in. Damn, that is worth it. And goggles wise, ski goggles are better because they ventilate and they're often double paned, but you got to find ones that fit in your helmet. Either
Yeah,
way.
I was gonna say one of my buddies rides with ski goggles on during winter when it's bad, but he also said it took him like 5 pairs to find some that fit, because they're not meant to be inside of a motorcycle helmet. You know, they're meant to be on your face, protecting you from snow and cold air and everything else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Give me your cheapest hacks for dealing with changing weather.
Cheapest hacks, or just hacks in general?
Yeah, hacks. I have got a cheap one that I want to throw in, but yeah, like what is an unconventional solution to a weather-related motorcycling problem?
Ooh. Well, like, this is a hack that I love. Your exhaust is basically like a hair dryer. Don't forget that. So if you are out in an environment and your hands get soaked or wet and they're cold, pop your hands over the exhaust. Same goes for your boot. If you get a cold, wet boot for some reason, you can pop that thing onto the exhaust and start to dry it out. It obviously isn't going to dry out fast because, you know, if you're soaked through, you're soaked through. But one of my favorite hacks for cold weather and warming up is using the exhaust to your advantage, because it will dry you off real quick and it will warm you up too, which I also did that during our riding weekend. All right, what you got?
Trash bags. So if you're going out in
Yeah.
non-waterproof gear and you need to keep riding, you can buy we used to do this all the time. I called it a biohazard suit when I worked at Safeway because we'd have to clean up the bathroom sometimes and it was super nasty. So I would take the bags from the bottle room, because this is also back when we had to count the cans ourselves. Yeah, I'm old. And you rip a hole in the top for your neck and one in each corner for your shoulders.
Yeah.
And it will keep you drier than if you had nothing at all. We actually did this at Disney World with my daughter when she was 8, because it like Florida, and so random monsoon happened, and I walked into one of the gift shops and was like, "Can I please have a bag?" And we have pictures of her in a princess dress with a Disney plastic bag over the top of it because
But it's so smart.
keep going.
Honestly, that's such a good hack, because if you're ever anywhere in Southeast Asia, one of the first things you know is that everybody's on a scooter. Second, it rains all the time and they don't have gear like we do. They put either like they have these like disposable, like basically trash bag rain suits that they have everywhere for people. And I actually had one that I wore on our dual sport trip because I kept getting soaked through with how much it was raining. So great, great hack. I love that one. I might start traveling with trash bags.
Yeah, or you can always find one too. And then rubber gloves, you can put them on under your gloves to keep your hands dry, or you can throw them on over. Your hands are going to sweat, like if they don't breathe, but it's better than cold and wet temporary. You can't do it all
Oh my
day,
God.
but
Yeah.
it'll get you home.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I think that's all I had for gear. Do you have any other tidbits you would like to add?
Spit on the inside of your visor in a pinch when you're out there. The snottier the better.
Snottier the
Supposedly you
better.
can rub a potato on the inside of your visor because it's like the starch is like a surfactant.
Sorry, do you ride with potatoes?
No, but ahead of time, or I guess if you're at like a freaking grocery store, I don't know. Uh, I
Noted.
I
Potato.
haven't tried that one. It would be smelling French fries the whole time. It'd be too distracting.
Oh my God, I know. I'm the same way.
Yeah,
Love potatoes.
yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, just life hacks from the Dork and Grays. Trash bags, potatoes,
Hmm.
and using your exhaust. There you
Yeah,
go.
you can cook the potatoes on your exhaust and have a snack.
There you go. Just have some ketchup.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. All
All right.
right. Well, I think that's our gear wrap up discussion.
Yeah. Tell us who and where. Tell us where people can follow you.
You can follow me on the YouTube under the Graceful Renegade, as well as on Instagram. You can find our podcast. The videos of the podcast will be on Ben's channel, Dork in the Road on YouTube. He is also Dork in the Road on TikTok and a Dork in the Road on Instagram. Did I do that right?
Yeah, crushed it. You totally redeemed yourself for the Celsius thing. Yeah, I don't know that every episode is going to make it to my channel, so make sure that you're following us on whatever podcast
Yes.
you
I
get your
will, if
podcast.
there's ever a one that Ben decides not to throw up here because he forgot to do hair and makeup beforehand, then I'll probably throw it on my channel since I only have I think a 50th of the following that you do, but you know, it's
Nobody's
okay.
counting. I mean, you're counting how many Emmys you have, but whatever. It's not a big deal.
But anyway, thank you so much for being here. Yes, you can find our podcast wherever you find podcasts, Spotify, Apple, wherever.
In the garbage.
And sometimes the garbage. But in the
Better.
meantime, everybody live wild, ride free.
Don't forget to be excellent to each other.
Bye bye.